Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to the CNM webinar on the gut-brain connection. I'm Annie Breen. I'm just going to say a quick hello and then I'm going to turn my camera off to get into the presentation. So I hope you're all well and I hope you enjoy this hour's presentation on the gut-brain connection. Let me turn my camera off. Okay, so I am just going to get stuck in. It's quite a lot of information, and I don't think I've done this in an hour before when I did it at the open day in Edinburgh. But hey, let's give it a go. So I'm Annie. I'm a naturopathic nutritional therapist. I studied with CNM. I qualified in 2015. And ever since then, I pretty much hit the ground running in terms of practicing. And that's really changed and grown quite a lot as I've gone on with my nutrition journey, which I will touch upon as we go. So I currently work online. I am based in Edinburgh and still very much involved with CNM as much as possible. So this is my approach, and it's very much, I love this picture because I think it speaks 1,000 words. That what we see on the surface is just such a small part in terms of our health and who we are, when actually it's what's underneath which holds our magic, which holds the clues to what could be going on with our health. That's really where we can start to rebalance and gain back our vitality and happiness by understanding what's going on at the root. And this is very much a functional medicine approach. So I use food as medicine. I use food to heal. And I also use lifestyle medicine and functional medicine. So that approach, because we need to consider the whole picture when we're thinking about our health. And this really is what that is. It's looking at the underlying imbalances that could be contributing to our health symptoms. So this could be things like imbalances in our gut health that's showing up in our mood, which we're going to talk about tonight. It could be imbalances in our immune system that is causing our brain fog and our fatigue. It could also be how we feel about ourselves, so our belief systems, our self-talk, all this kind of invisible stuff that can be really hard to articulate that we all carry around. That can have a huge impact on our physiology. Our physiology and psychology are interconnected. So we really need to consider the whole picture and not just take what's on the surface and stick a Band-Aid over the top. It's very much healing from the roots. So the agenda tonight is looking at the gut-brain connection, so how it works and the role of nutrition in supporting that relationship. Then factors that disrupt the relationship and natural solutions in supporting gut and brain health. And then I'm going to talk through a case study as well. So I absolutely love this quote. If you like the saying, I say it a lot. The gut is not like Las Vegas. What goes on in the gut doesn't stay in the gut. Alessio Fasano. So Alessio Fasano actually discovered zonulin, which helps keep the tight junctions of our gut wall together, which I'm going to go into a little bit later. But he's an Italian gastroenterologist. And basically what he's saying is what goes on in our gut doesn't stay there. I like to describe the gut as being like the hub that interconnects and regulates every process in the body. So if our gut goes out of whack or out of balance, then it might show up in our mood, it might show up in our hormones, it might show up in our energy, in our skin. It really does have far-reaching effects for the reasons that we're going to go into. So when we're talking about digestion and gut health, I make a bit of a joke here that it's not just a beer belly. I mean, if we're sat around the table, the gut, just the name, if that comes up, it's not a very kind of glamorous topic. People still kind of shy away from it. But actually, it's becoming much more appreciated and acknowledged and valued, if you like, in terms of our health. And it's not just about the bit that sits around the middle, our stomach. It is, in fact, the whole gastrointestinal tract. So when we use the term gut, we mean our whole digestive system, essentially. And that starts at the mouth and it goes all the way down to the other end, our anus. And it's really, really important that when we're thinking about gut health, that we consider this whole kind of track, if you like. So digestion really starts in the mouth. I see a lot of problems starting up here. For example, our mindset. So if we're on the go, if we're rushing, we're not really valuing what we're putting in our body. We're just eating to survive. We're not chewing. We're inhaling our food. This can start a whole load of problems further down. So when we chew, we give out saliva, which then signals further down to release certain enzymes, and that really helps with our digestion. And then our esophagus moves food down the tract, and at the bottom, the esophageal tract, we've got this little kind of gateway, if you like, this valve, and then things can then go further down into the digestive system, into the stomach and into the intestines. So everything's kind of mixed up. It's a bit like a washing machine, if you like, in the stomach. And we rely on stomach acid. We rely on juices and digestive juices to help break down our food. That's really, really important. And then in our intestine, especially the small intestine, that's where we absorb the amazing nutrients from our food. Now, the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas, they probably deserve a whole webinar because they are very, very important. But just to touch on them now is really this is where they store and produce certain enzymes and bile so that we can really break down our food. So they really help with that digestive process and then how we remove the waste from the body as well and the bile. And then the large intestine where we absorb the water and the rectum where we excrete. So the excretion part is incredibly important as well. We need to be going to the loo. We need to be passing the waste out of our body, which again, I'm going to touch on shortly. So why is the gut so important? Well, 70 to 80% of our immune system resides in the gut. So if we want to have a healthy immune system, and let's face it, it is our greatest protection and defense mechanism. We need it to be on side. It keeps us safe. It keeps us well. So that resides in our gut. There's approximately 100 million neurons along the GI tract. So that's actually more nerve cells than what we have in our spine. So this is what really gives the gut the sort of name, the second brain, because it has its own nervous system. It has nerve cells. And then the gut actually manufactures, talking about the brain, more brain chemicals than the brain. So 90% of our so-called sort of happy hormone, serotonin, is made in the gut. And then our digestive tract is host to 10 trillion microorganisms. So we have more microbes in our gut than we do stars in the Milky Way. And I like to kind of describe this as having a galaxy inside of us. There's much more of them than us. In fact, there's 10 times more microbes than human cells. So it absolutely makes sense that we grow to understand them, look after them, and keep them in balance, because we have never coexisted without our microbiome, with this galaxy of microbes that live in our gut. We haven't ever lived without them. Our gut also is the biggest interface with the outside world. So if you think of that tract going all the way down, that is why we've got 70 to 80% of the immune system there, because it's our interface with the outside, our outside environment. So let's talk a bit about the connection. So the vagus nerve, I'm seeing a lot more come up about this in the media, but it is the nerve that joins the two. So the gut and the brain is joined by the vagus nerve. And this is a main component of the parasympathetic nervous system. So we have the parasympathetic, which I describe as being stress off or a more relaxed state, and then the sympathetic, which is more stress on. And the gut really sits as the control center, if you like. I mean, we need to think about our mindset and how we're perceiving stress. But we have a huge amount of agency within our gut to how we ever, to whether we are more stressed or more relaxed, more parasympathetic. And that will become clear shortly. So it oversees a vast array of crucial bodily functions. So this is where our mood comes into it, our immune response, our digestion, our heart rate. And it also sends information throughout all of our organs. So the vagus nerve is actually sort of plugged into, if you like, I sort of describe it as being a bit of a modem, or, you know, when your computer had to be physically plugged in. So it's plugged into the amygdala in the brain, which is the fear center. And then you've got the other end, which is plugged into the adrenals, the fight or flight. And in the middle, it goes around all of your vital organs. And it is a big communication superhighway. So there's neurotransmitters and neurons all the way around this nerve. In fact, this whole system, which is the enteric nervous system, produces more than 30 neurotransmitters. So this is what I really find fascinating, is if we think about it, it's a two-way highway of communication. So the gut talks to the brain and the brain can talk to the gut. The interesting thing is the information coming down, so from the brain to the gut, is only about 10%, whereas going back the other way from the gut to the brain is 90%. So if you are someone, just to put it into context, let's say you are chronically stressed. So maybe this is emotional, maybe something is worrying you, maybe it's stuff that hasn't happened yet. There's future stuff. It could be to do with your work, with your relationships, with your children. And that's on your mind, it's worrying you. That is then fed down to the gut. So this information going down really affects our motility, so how our bowels are regular or not, how we deliver nutrients around the body, so the absorption, and our microbial balance, so that galaxy of gut bugs. So if you are emotionally stressed, let's say you're carrying a bit of a load, like an emotional anchor, that's going to feed down. That's really going to affect almost like IBS, if you like, that umbrella term, could really affect your digestion. But then that's going to feed back up. So it's almost like this cycle, if you like. So if we imbalance your motility, your absorption, and your microbial balance, then that's going to almost cause the gut to feel stressed as well. It is the second brain. If the gut feels stressed, that stress is going to be fed back to the brain. And then you're kind of stuck in this survival mode, if you like. We're activating that fear center and that fight or flight. And when you have survival physiology, so when your physical body feels stressed, you can start to have more survival thoughts. So we start to make impulsive thoughts, impulsive decisions. Maybe we get quite snappy. Maybe our choices of food become more survival, so sugary snacks. So it really affects our choices and how we behave. And then, of course, those sorts of choices can feed back into this imbalance in our gut bugs. So the interkingdom signaling. So this just really reflects what I was just saying, that we have this amazing enteric nervous system, which is connected by the vagus nerve. It is the gut and the brain. If you cut that nerve, it could function independently. So it doesn't need the brain, which is incredible. And it really does affect our mood. It's very reactive. It's two-way. And it is like this communication channel. Also, some of our gut bugs produce neurotransmitters or brain chemicals, if you like. So they can produce things like serotonin, melatonin, and GABA. GABA, which is a relaxing neurotransmitter. Serotonin, yes, happy hormone, but also responsible for how our bowel moves, so the sort of peristaltic movement of the bowel, and melatonin, which is our sleep hormone. So just by having a balanced gut microbiome, we can feel happier in our mood, calmer, have better sleep. And then short chain fatty acids as well. So these are produced by the gut. We need to eat fiber for them to produce these short chain fatty acids. And this enhances the synthesis of serotonin. So inter-kingdom signaling is really just this kind of communication network that is going on within our enteric nervous system, which is between the gut and the brain. And this goes back to the thinking of the gut as the hub, because it really does communicate and affect every other organ, every other system in the body. So how does the gut feed and protect the brain? Well, first of all, I think that is a very good point. Our gut feeds our brain. So we think as food, not just as medicine, but as information. We need to eat the right information that's going to give us our body, our mind, our brain, the right nutrients to function, the right information to function. So it has to go through the gut first. So if we think about our gut microbiome then, how do we feed the brain? Why is our gut bugs important for our brain health? Well, first of all, there's loads of them, so they need to be good for something. They manufacture B vitamins, so B12, B6, vitamin K, biotin, B3, B5, folate, all the B vitamins, they actually manufacture. And we know that B vitamins are really good for our mood, for energy, and so many other processes in the body. They also increase our absorption of minerals. So we need our gut bugs in order to absorb that amazing information from our food. They also help us fight pathogens. So not all bugs are bad. It's really important to understand this, that we've never coexisted without our gut microbiome. So I don't like to really refer to them as good and bad, but there are some that are much more helpful than others. So the ones that become pathogenic can cause more symptoms, if you like, and that happens when we don't have the right balance. So if we're stressed, maybe eating an inflammatory diet, we're on the go, we might have a high toxic load. Maybe we're taking medications, or we've had loads of antibiotics or proton pump inhibitors, stomach acid blocking drugs. That can all imbalance our gut microbiome. And it's this kind of accumulation over time. And in that environment, pathogens can grow. So it's really important to have that balance. Digesting food, so actually breaking your food down, metabolism of drugs, so they actually help with detoxification. So the gut is almost like the first organ of detoxification, if you like. We need it to be working well to take the burden off the liver. They also influence our total body, let's just say body, metabolism. So it's been shown that if we have imbalances, which is known as dysbiosis in our gut, that our calorie extraction is actually 15% higher. So we could have a good diet. We could have made loads of external changes. But if we've had this accumulated kind of imbalance in our gut, that is going to be making us take more from our food and affect our metabolism and weight. So you may have heard the term leaky gut or gastrointestinal hyperpermeability, if you like. So really this is going back to that quote by Alessa Fasano, that what goes on in the gut doesn't stay in the gut. So I like to describe the gut microbiome, the microbes, as the army that keep us safe. And the gut wall, the gut lining, is like the army barracks. So it needs to have good integrity. It needs to be intact for us to keep harmful things out and all the good stuff in. It's that big interface with the outside world. And interestingly, it is only one cell thick. So the gut lining that lines our whole gastrointestinal tract is 1 cell thick. So what can happen is that, again, we need to think about this in our whole life storybook. But an accumulation of things over time can weaken that gut lining. So it could be stress, and that could be emotional, physical, environmental, or psychological. Could be toxins. So we need to be thinking about what we're breathing, what we're eating, and what we're putting on our body. It could be food. So food can harm, food can heal. This is thinking about inflammatory foods and sugars and very processed fast foods, if you like. Drugs as well, so certain medications, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, proton pump inhibitors, antibiotics, can all imbalance our gut microbiome, but also wear away at that gut wall. And then pathogens themselves. So if we've got an overgrowth of a bacterial infection or a fungal infection or a parasitic infection, maybe a virus, that can also cause loss of integrity of the gut wall, because usually at that point, our gut bugs would have fallen out of balance. And then it can affect other organs. So other organ malfunction as well can impact our gut wall. And then what happens is when things start to pass through the gut wall, you see these little tight junctions. They're like little gateways, so they should be close together. They start to become further apart. And this is where things pass through that shouldn't be passing through. So let's say we've eaten something and the protein of that food has passed through. It could be some gluten. Then the immune system is seeing it as a foreign invader. They're seeing it as an attacker. It shouldn't be there. So it launches an attack to deal with it through inflammation. And if we think about lots of things passing through, so if you're someone that reacts to a lot of foods and you just can't kind of get your head around any pattern, you don't know what's causing your symptoms, maybe there's been some loss of integrity of the gut wall, because that's what seems to happen is you just become very reactive and sensitive and bloated and not very comfortable, brain fog, because things are getting where they shouldn't be, and you're putting all your resources towards your immune system to deal with it, which is really energy intensive. This is where brain fog and fatigue comes in as well. Okay, so what is the blood-brain barrier? We've talked about the gut. Let's talk about the brain. So the structure, if you like, of the blood-brain barrier is exactly the same. So it is 1 cell thick, and it has the proteins, the zonulin proteins that keep those tight junctions together. So it makes sense that what can pass through the gut wall can also pass through the blood-brain barrier. So it is semi-permeable. Things can pass through, and it acts like a protective bubble, protecting the brain from toxins, harmful substances, bacteria that may enter the bloodstream. So what can cause blood-brain barrier dysfunction? So a head injury. If you have ever had a head injury or you know someone that has, it's really good to be aware of some of these. Maybe it's a past event, depending on what their symptoms are. Radiation, oxidative stress, which I'll talk about when I talk about inflammation. Maybe an infection that usually stems from the gut. It could be bacterial or parasitic, viral. Low oxygen, high blood pressure, environmental toxins that have got through, heavy metals. And when I talk about heavy metals, they tend to be in our environment. So there's certain kind of materials and things that you find them in. Elevation in nitric oxide, alcohol, stress, systemic inflammation and autoimmunity, food additives, so things like MSG, aspartame, those sorts of things. So what I would just say here is, if we're thinking about this, we need to think about the relationship together. So what are we actually putting through our gut? What are we putting through our gastrointestinal system, because although we can't control everything in our environment, we can make sure that our gut, our liver is working really well, that we're excreting toxins, we're going to the loo, in order to sort of reduce that risk, if you like. So it's not that we can go around avoiding every single toxin in the environment, and that would induce a lot of stress. It's looking at improving the body's capacity to deal with some of these things that really reduces the risk of anything getting anywhere near the blood-brain barrier. So methylation, this is blurred because it's supposed to be. I remember when I saw this for the first time in college, I had to look at it a couple of times. But all I want to say about this is methylation happens in pretty much every cell in the body, lots of times every second. And what it is, it's almost like a tagging system where you, or like I think of a relay where you're running around and you're passing the baton. So it passes, it's a kind of system that passes a methyl donor, if you like, to make these wheels go round. And what they're doing is they're making brain chemicals, they're making neurotransmitters, they're helping us make energy, our immune function, detoxification. So these cycles need to be going round, and everyone needs to be getting their baton and passing that donut to keep this running smoothly. But I just wanted to touch on this because this is essentially what we need to feel good. This is how we make our brain chemicals, our neurotransmitters. It's how we detoxify. And it is absolutely 100% reliant on food. So proteins, B vitamins, magnesium, minerals, all sorts of different nutrients from our food makes this work. So just to touch on stress, because we can't talk about the gut brain without talking about stress. I love this quote by Dr. Rohan Chatterjee. In the past, we were attacked by lions, and now we're attacked by our lives. And it's so, so true. No longer is the threat the lion or the tiger, but it is, in fact, our inbox, or maybe our relationships, or our work, or our children, or how we feel about ourselves, pressures, demands, the juggling act that is 21st century living, social media, and the demand and input, shall I say, of information that's coming into our brains. So there is a lot more coming at us in this day and age. And when we talk about stress, we need to think about, what does it mean to me? What does stress mean? And I like to call it personal management, because it's really looking how we can manage ourselves in our environment, opposed to trying to change everything around us. That can become really stressful. So emotional stress, physical stress. Emotional is our mood, our behavior, our feelings, how we feel from day to day. Physical, this can be where the gut comes in. So if we've got imbalances in our gut, if we've got a gut infection, bacterial infection, that is a physical stressor. It might not be visible, but it's happening on the inside. It's going back to that iceberg analogy. Physical, also think about injury, think about sports injury, or over exercising, or not sleeping as well. These are all physical stresses. Psychological is more how we feel about ourselves, any past traumas, our belief systems, how sort of happy and purposeful our lives feel. And then we got toxic and environmental stress. So this is pretty much everything in our environment, from what we breathe, drink, eat, put in and on our bodies. I would also consider environment in terms of our career, our finances, our relationships as well. So there's some crossover here. But basically, stress is received by the body in the same way. So we respond to stress as if we need to fight or flight or freeze. So whether that is something that has actually happened to us, or whether it's perceived, or whether it's being that we're ruminating on past events, it's creating future anxiety, Maybe we've got an injury on the inside that we can't see. Maybe we've got a physical injury. Maybe we've got a high toxic load. Whatever it is, and it's normally an accumulation and a combination, it triggers our stress response in the same way. We still prioritize our focus, our limbs, our arms and legs so we can run away, our focus so we can fight or flight. We do not prioritize our digestive system because we don't need to eat a burger in times of fighting a tiger. We do not prioritize our reproductive system because we don't need to make a baby in those times either. And the immune system, which is incredibly energy intensive and normally comes alive at night, that doesn't get prioritized either. However, what I will say is our immune system is our biggest defense mechanism. So if the mind is told the body is under attack, it's going to activate inflammation to deal with that. I'm going to touch on inflammation in a bit. So the important thing here is to understand that stress, whether it's happening or not, will start these processes in the body of getting ready to fight or flight. And in that process, it is not going to be prioritizing our absorption, our gut health. And that can cause a lot of imbalances in our gut. It can cause us not to deliver the nutrients we need to our brain. And we're just putting all our resources towards running away or fighting. So inflammation is a vital part of the immune system. And the way that I like to describe it is when we get the flu and we feel really achy, fatigued, groggy, run down, restless, irritable, can't sleep but can't get comfortable, depressed. That is the immune system fighting the flu. It's not the flu, it's the immune system's response. Our bodies pretty much communicate to us in symptoms of inflammation. So we need to tune in, we need to connect, we need to take note. The flu, of course, we know if we've got the flu. But let's think about more subtle signs like a headache here and there, or some bloating, or maybe fatigue or brain fog. We need to think about what's going on, what's the body trying to tell us, what's it dealing with. So it's going back to the survival physiology and survival psychology. If we are stressed, then we signal the body we're under attack. If we're under attack, we're going to activate our inflammatory pathways to deal with that, even if it's a perceived or an emotional stress. And then what happens is it steals our resources away from our brain, from our digestion. And then we start to behave in a way that we are under attack. So if we are on our last day, we might need to get a sugary snack. We're not thinking about what we're going to be doing in 6 months' time. So our decisions, our choices, our food and lifestyle choices become incredibly impulsive and short-term and survival, opposed to long-term and thriving. I do see inflammation and stress to come hand in hand. I see them both together. Slightly different processes are activated, but they're both there to keep us safe when we need to fight or flight. So Ed Bullmore's work, he wrote The Inflamed Mind. He now says that developing new treatments for depression is challenging and requires innovative thinking. We're exploring whether the immune system could be a cause of brain disorders. And absolutely, it's going back to the fact that if you have got imbalances in your gut and you've got an inflamed gut and the immune system's fighting something, it's absolutely plausible and has been researched that you can have an inflamed brain, if you like, because it shows up in a similar way. That blood-brain barriers of a similar structure. But how the symptoms show up, in my experience, has been brain fog, fatigue, and overwhelm. So symptoms and conditions relating to gut dysfunction and gut-brain dysfunction. So we've got all these conditions on the left. There's not many that aren't related to gut dysfunction, to be honest, but depression, anxiety, thyroid disorders, autoimmunity. So going back to that leaky gut, image that if things keep passing through and the immune system keeps responding, it can get confused. It can get confused, and this is where maybe autoimmunity progression can start to happen. Neurodegeneration, autism, ADHD, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, allergy sensitivities, iron deficiency, malabsorption. So that's just a few. There are many more. Typical symptoms. So when we think about, is my gut not working well? We're typically going to be thinking about bloating, flatulence, undigested food in stools, reflux, abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea, food intolerances, foul smelling stools. So they're quite obvious. But then what I'm seeing, and it goes back to the body communicates through symptoms of inflammation, is migraines, anxiety, mood changes, sinus problems, achy joints, fatigue, foggy brain, poor memory and concentration, skin conditions, and night sweats and teeth grinding. Again, there's more, but people wouldn't necessarily put those down to a gut dysfunction if they were experiencing those symptoms. So it just comes back to everything we eat, that information to feed the brain needs to go through our gastrointestinal tract. We need to feed our gut bugs so we can feed our brain. So what can I do to support and improve my gut and brain health? This is what we've all been waiting for. So the first thing, which is not that glamorous and funky and fancy at all, but essential, is our digestion. So we need to be digesting our food, chewing our food, and then we need to be absorbing our food. So we need to be eating ideally in a rested state, a more parasympathetic state. And then that's so the absorption can take place. We can't absorb if we're really stressed. And then, of course, the excretion. So we should be passing a stool a day, and it should be more type 4. It shouldn't have any foul smell to it. It should be easy to pass. And ideally, we go even 2 to 3 times a day, as long as it's not loose or hard to pass or uncomfortable. So that's kind of the dream. And if we're constipated, and it's extremely common, as is IBS, diarrhea and constipation, we're almost holding that waste in our bowel. And the longer we hold waste in our bodies, that's creating a sort of breeding ground, if you like, for pathogens to thrive, for viruses, bacteria, fungal organisms to thrive. So we don't want to be creating that. We want to be creating an environment that the healthful bugs can thrive. So it's really, really important. And especially with things like energy and just toxicity, we don't want to be building up our toxic load. Hormone balance, we have to excrete hormones as well. So this would be the first thing that I look at when I have a client is, are you excreting your toxins? And sleep as well, which we'll come on to. So I want to go through the 5R protocol, and this is incredibly vast. There's quite a lot to it. It's something that you would work with someone with over time. But just to give you an idea, because I think it's a really nice structure of gut healing. And sometimes we might do a couple of these things at once. You don't have to go through it in this order, but it's just understanding that to begin with, we need to remove stress from the body. So when I was talking about our stress response and those different stresses and food being one of them, what in your diet could be causing stress? Is it high carbohydrate? Is your diet very beige? Is it full of sugar? Is there alcohol in there? Is it quite glutinous? Do you like a lot of dairy? Do you like a lot of soy? So these proteins are quite hard to break down. So they can cause inflammation. They can cause leakiness of the gut and an immune response. So it's just looking at your plate and thinking, is this an anti-inflammatory plate? Is it full of color and healthy kind of proteins and fats and color? Or is it a more pro-inflammatory plate? Is it quite beige? Am I not getting enough color in there? Is it quite carbohydrate heavy? And keep a food diary. That's a great way to start, because we're so intuitive. We do know when we start to look at what we're eating honestly, it kind of jumps out at us. So here we are talking about those classic foods. The classic ones are gluten, dairy, soy, sugar, alcohol, which can really disrupt your gut microbiome. Processed foods, unstable fats, but also stress. So if we're removing the physical stresses, we need to consider that emotional anchor, that emotional load as well, and the wider picture. And then, of course, pathogens. So here, if you're working one-to-one with a nutritional therapist, this is where they might go into a little bit more detail around what's going on in your gut, maybe comprehensive stool testing, or really honing in on what could be causing your symptoms, depending on what they are. Unnecessary medications, so maybe medications you've been taking for a long period of time, just over-the-counter ones, and environmental toxins. So we're looking at that whole picture. How can we lighten the load? How can we take the stress off the body? And then what I always say is what we add in can be more impactful sometimes. So it's not just about taking out. It's not about restricting ourselves. And when we do take things out, it's not necessarily forever. It might be for a period of time while you do the other stages of this protocol and rebalance your gut. So replacing is all about bringing in the digestive support. So this could be our prebiotic foods that really help feed our good bacteria. So this is things like bananas, garlic, leeks, onions, and then artichoke. And then enzymes as well. So apple cider vinegar, raw pineapple and papaya. So fresh raw pineapple and papaya before meals, which works really nice with children, can hold natural enzymes. So that can really support your digestion. Mindful eating, how we chew our food, so important and powerful. Going back to that diagram about our whole digestive system, if we can really work at the top, it's going to have a hugely beneficial effect later on. And then time-restricted chewing food. Yes, I just said that. If someone had told me to chew how many years ago, I wouldn't be in half the mess. But time-restricted feeding as well. So really, there is a way of doing this. But to start with, you just want to be giving yourself intervals between your meals. So if you have a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, that is brilliant. What I see happening in this day and age, and I've done it myself, is grazing throughout the day. So just grabbing stuff here and there, especially if you're a parent, you're on the go, you're just going to be grabbing bits. Snacking in between, because maybe you're tired, maybe you're inflamed, you've got brain fog, you're trying to get through the day, and having erratic meal patterns. So it's just bringing it back to that, having free balanced meals with a clear gap. If you have IBS or you have constipation and diarrhea, this will really retrain that migrating motor complex. So that movement of the bowel that pushes everything through, it does its housekeeping when we're not eating. So we need to be resting so we can digest. That's where that kind of comes from. And then also talking about adding in is renoculating the gut. So this is where we talk about probiotics. So prebiotics feed our gut bacteria so they can exert their magic effects. Probiotics are live bacteria, so we put them in and they exert their magical effects as they go through the bowel. So they're transient. So they do all those amazing things that I spoke about by producing all those brain chemicals and vitamins as they go through. So you can get these in fermented foods. So I think there's so many different fermented foods out there today. It's got really kind of fancy and broad, and there's a great selection. So you can get all sorts of different sauerkrauts, kombuchas, kimchis, kefirs. It's all happening. And you can make your own. This is what I say, is try making your own. Give it a go. Involve your kids. Cruciferous vegetables as well. So the cruciferous type vegetables, which are cauliflower, broccoli, collard greens, are really, really supportive for our gut and our liver and moving everything through the bowel. Also, the flax seeds. So omega-3 fats can really help the diversity of our gut microbiome. And this is what we want to do. We don't want to just take probiotics. I say that like gut health or gut healing isn't just about taking out gluten and adding in probiotics. There's more to it. That can be really helpful for some, but it's about thinking about the diversity of your diet equals the diversity of your gut microbiome. So you really want to be eating omega-3 fats and lots of different color, your cruciferous vegetables, different color of vegetables, fermented foods. And flax seeds and soluble fiber can really be fuel for your gut flora or your microbiome. Broccoli as well, just under cruciferous vegetables, and the sulforaphane in broccoli that can be really healing for the gut lining. Stewed apples, which I think is great. They're prebiotic, but they're great for kids because they're quite easy to get into them, and can really help with diversity of the microbiome and encouraging the growth of your own gut bugs. Garlic as well, which can support the creation of our gut bugs, but it's also got some antimicrobial properties to keep the not so healthy ones in check. And then the repair element. So this is really looking at the gut lining, that leaky gut, or stopping that progression. So here, there's a few nutrients that are really effective. This might be where if you're working one-to-one with someone, you take some supplements and you get a little bit of extra support. But zinc is really healing of that gut lining. It helps repair the epithelial tissue, the cells. The glutamine as well, which does the same. It's an amino acid. And you can find that in different proteins, animal proteins, and there's some vegetarian vegan sources as well. And you can supplement it. Bone broth, which has glutamine in it, I think is amazing, is one of my favorites. I like to make organic bone broth and then put it in, ice cube trays. So you can just put some into individual meals, or if you've got kids, it's quite a nice way of just optimizing their nutrition there. Antioxidants, so phytonutrients, vitamin A, C, D, and E. So all your colorful vegetables, we want lots of phytonutrients and polyphenols here, which is the properties in your vegetables and fruits, such as berries, raspberries, cherries, strawberries. So we want lots of color. It almost acts like Velcro. So if you can put polyphenols in, this is brilliant for that gut-brain connection. And it helps the probiotics be much more effective. And then you've got things like inulin and FOS, which are prebiotics, which feed our good bacteria. Collagen, which really helps all of our tissues, to be honest, repair and function. And then lion's mane, which is actually a medicinal mushroom supplement that works on the gut brain. So it helps repair the nerve, the coating of the nerve, the myelin. It can help regenerate that and work on the epithelial cells of the gut. So it's quite a nice one to use on gut brain kind of symptoms. And then the last bit of this is rebalancing. So this is all about our lifestyle. And I have to say, like, I see all this in a cycle rather than a sort of step by step. This connects that cycle. So we need to be thinking about our personal management and our lifestyle and our stress the whole way through this. We need to be thinking about how much happiness and joy and fun and laughter we're having. Sometimes we're not tired because we're doing too much. It's that we're not doing enough of what we love. So we need to be filling up our purpose, our cup, what's in our heart. Exercising and movement, moving our body, not sitting for long periods of time looking at screens. We need to be really letting things flow. When we move our physiology, it really shifts our emotional state. So it works really well together. Nutrition, of course, we've spoken about, relaxation and mindfulness. So it just kind of highlights that there's a much bigger picture. And I see not the mistake, but what a lot of people do is they hone in on one thing, and it might be exercise, or it might be restricting calories, or it might be cutting this out of the diet. And it's very much placing your energy at the effect and trying really hard and pushing yourself, when it's coming back to the inside and the cause. What do you actually need? Maybe you need to slow down. Maybe you need to breathe a little. Maybe you need to do some yoga and rebalance that nervous system and get more restorative. And the thing is, by doing that, that actually projects you forward much faster. So it's more being and less doing. I couldn't talk about this without talking about sleep. I just think it is one of our greatest healers. And you're speaking to a mum with a nearly 4-year-old. So I know what it's like not to have sleep. I didn't realize how much I depend on sleep or how much I need it. When you become a mum, it's like that's just stripped away. Your survival tools, your repair tools, your rebalancing, your kind of housekeeping, if you like, is taken away. So it's so, so important. And I think we don't value it enough. And because screens are such a big part of our lifestyles, and also, you know, just grabbing that time in the evening, if we're really busy, we've been at work, we've been parenting, sometimes we get stuck up watching Netflix or even working late at night. So it's thinking about the immune system needs to do its magic, or do its housekeeping, if you like, while we're asleep, so we don't have cortisol, our stress hormone, in the system. So we need sleep for our immune system to clear everything out. In Chinese medicine, they see certain organs as rebalancing at certain times of the day. So certain times relate to certain organs. And the liver is around 1 to 3. So if you're someone that gets up a lot at that time, maybe you need to nourish your liver health a little bit more. If it's around 5 to 7, which, let's think about how many people are getting up at that time anyway, this is when the large intestine, like our digestive system, is really rebalancing. So we need to really think about that. If you're constantly being woken up around 5 or having to get up, are you then feeling quite bloated and done in? Could your symptoms be sort of starting from that early start? And it's just understanding this, because sometimes it might feel that you can't do much about it, but there's always something that you can do. It's always maybe focusing on restorative practices in the day, getting out in nature and sunlight to really help your natural circadian rhythm, managing stress in the day if you can't quite change this bit, supporting your digestion, chewing your food, having some probiotics, eating that color. So it's looking at what you can do opposed to what you can't change. And then just a few foods for nourishing the brain is our tryptophan-rich foods, which is the precursor to serotonin and melatonin, happy hormone, sleep hormone. So these are things like the brown meat. So in turkey and chicken, you want to be having the brown meat, bananas, cherries, oats. So sometimes I recommend clients have a nighttime smoothie, which is cherries, oats, banana in it. And that's quite nice for kids as well, because they can help the production of tryptophan and serotonin and melatonin. And then GABA, which is a calming neurotransmitter. So our Lactobacillus rhamnosus, which is a strain of bacteria, actually produce this. So here's the real kind of happy bug. But sources in food are things like brewer's yeast, cabbage, eggs, avocado, bananas, carrot, chicken, legumes, lentils, mackerel, salmon, oats, sunflower seeds, and walnuts. So actually, by eating those foods, that can really give you enough B6 to produce that GABA to help calm yourself. Because another thing that can happen is if we are someone that drinks alcohol and we use alcohol to cope with stress, Alcohol gives a similar effect. It's just not long lasting. So it stimulates GABA. So think about cravings. And this is maybe a conversation for another time, but they're telling you something. So your cravings are kind of signals, if you like, from the body. So if you're someone that wanted to reduce your alcohol intake, maybe you look at increasing these sources to help increase your GABA. Tyrosine, which really helps, it's like the precursor to a lot of our thyroid hormones and other hormones. So this is really important for our brain health. So this actually precurses the dopamine production. And dopamine is very much about our memory, our learning, and our motivation. So it's like kind of get up and go. So things like almonds, avocado, banana, beans, beef, chicken, egg, fish, pumpkin seeds, wild game, whey protein. This can be really helpful sources of tyrosine. Omega-3 fats as well. This would probably be my number one in terms of brain health, because our cells, the membranes, are made out of omega-3 fats. Our brain is made out of fat. So we need these sources, this EPA and DHA, to have really good nervous system function, for our nerves to be able to communicate, for that whole network that we talked about in the enteric nervous system, the gut-brain connection, to really communicate well and send the appropriate signals. So think about fish, oily fish, flaxseed oil, flax seeds, chia seeds. And then B vitamins, 100% going back to that methylation kind of picture and cycle, that we need it for the normal functioning of our brain and nervous system. So this is from my course, this image, but it's a healthy eating plate. It's like an anti-inflammatory plate. So here we're looking at what needs to be on your plate. And this is just an example, but we need to be thinking about half the plate being vegetables and fruit, mainly vegetables. So 6 to 7, 8 portions a day, but start at your baseline and just increase by a couple. And then we need to think about starchy carbohydrates. So this is all your root vegetables and sort of more complex carbs, like your grains, quinoa, brown rice, sweet potato, buckwheat. And then we've got your protein. So quality over quantity always. Go with organic meats where possible. Go with your plant-based protein sources as well. And also oily wild fish where possible, and eggs as well. And then there's a few kind of anti-inflammatory superfoods and gut healing superfoods that I like to add in, like ginger and turmeric and garlic, fermented foods, onions, which can be really, really helpful as well. And don't forget, hydrate. We haven't spoken about water, but regular water between meals. You don't want to be drinking too much while you're digesting, because it can actually dilute your digestive juices. So just a few key takeaways. Listen to your gut. It is the second brain. It has got your best interests at heart. We have never existed without our microbiome. So it's really important to tune into our intuition and listen to ourselves, to our bodies. That gut feeling is a real thing. We have a nervous system down there. When we stop listening to ourselves, there's normally some kind of imbalance in our gut or inflammation at play. So it's looking at that in order to reconnect and retrust and believe in yourself and your ability. Get help to investigate underlying causes. I will always work with a therapist. I will always work with a practitioner of some kind. I don't think we should ever do it alone. It is this kind of self-discovery journey, and it should be exciting, but it can be really overwhelming if we're trying to deal with it on our own. What can you change in your environment? So look at your environment: stress, food, sleep, exercise, your work. What do you have agency over? What can you do today? And it's just that step, taking those consistent steps to help give you what you need to feel healthy and happy. Give the digestive system a rest. So mindful eating, time restricted feeding, eat those free meals, don't graze. Give your digestive system time to do its housekeeping and do its magic. Reduce sugar and increase colour. I think sugar and alcohol, or processed foods in general, can be really damaging to the gut microbiome and to our gut lining. And I am talking about sort of a lot over a period of time. I'm not saying you can't have some here and there. But look at those. How much of those play a role in your diet? How big a part are they in your diet? And then look at adding things in, not just taking stuff out. How much colour can we add in? Cravings for sugar, cravings for alcohol. Think gut microbiome. Think, is there an imbalance there? Are we feeding our not so healthy bacteria? Do they like booze and sugar? Yeah, I wouldn't say they like the booze, but they definitely like the sugar. So there's always a reason behind it. Bring those tryptophan, those serotonin-producing foods in to really help reduce cravings. Look at fermented foods. Look at probiotics. Look at balancing your gut bugs. Bring the colour in, get the polyphenols in, and really help encourage the growth of your own gut microbiome. Eat to feed your brain, so not just fill your stomach. And this comes back to mindful eating, but also being really aware of why you're putting that information in. So we are fueling our stomach so it can feed our brain. We are trying to feed our gut bugs so they can look after us. It's a mindset shift. It kind of changes our approach to eating. Food is information, not just fuel. So think about that methylation cycle. We need the information from our food to function. Become your own health agent. This is very much stepping back into or connecting back to you and stepping into your power. We are all different. We all have different things that make us happy, that make us feel good. So it's really connecting with what you need and not what you think you should be doing, and really trusting your instincts and asking the question why, not just settling for that band-aid. What's going on underneath? Look after your gut bugs. They run the show. Yeah, well, there's a lot of them, so you can understand why they're so impactful. But absolutely, not all bugs are bad. We need them on side. We need to look after them. Get honest with alcohol. Yeah, definitely. 80-20 rule. What could be your extra 20% investment in yourself? So now I'm just going to, it's been about an hour. I'm just going to touch on my case study to kind of pull this together, if you like. And I just wanted to share, so this is my diagram that I use in my course. So I made this, and it's very much based on the functional medicine model. But this has really got me at the center, because I'm going to talk about myself a little bit. And I talked about this when I did the CNM Open Day in June. Last year, I think it was. So basically, my story starts when I was born, and we haven't got time to talk about that. But everything came to the surface when I became a mum. So Bonnie is now nearly 4. And when I had her, the whole process, the pregnancy, the birth was great. It really was. It was amazing. But everything started to take a turn afterwards. And it was just this overwhelming sense of kind of overwhelm, fear, not being enough. Was I ever going to be able to be the mum she deserved? I kind of describe it that she was the personification, or she represented love, and I didn't love myself as much as what she kind of represented. So my journey from there went on this whole kind of self-love, personal growth adventure. And although it kind of, I'm starting there, what it did do is it brought up a lot of stuff from my past and my upbringing. And I think a lot of our belief systems and behaviors and our values are really kind of embedded in when we're younger. And I started to kind of unpick some of this stuff. So to begin with, just considering this kind of health puzzle, if you like, my body was kind of keeping the score. So I was absolutely exhausted. I was really kind of sleep deprived. I was depleted. I didn't understand all this stuff, even though I was a nutritional therapist. It's almost like having a book close up, but not being able to read the words. It was just all too much. There was too much going on. It was overwhelm. But the sleep deprivation really floored me. So to begin with, to kind of navigate my way forward, we had to come up with this kind of sleep strategy. So that was the first thing. And then slowly, like, my knowledge about the gut came back, and I was like, do you know what, something isn't right here. I want to test my gut. So I did a comprehensive stool analysis, and that came back with having high levels of calprotectin, which is an inflammatory marker in the bowel. So backtracking before that, I'd gone to the doctors, I'd asked for help. I was feeling incredibly low for 2 weeks of the month. I felt like I couldn't function. I couldn't go on. I felt like I was a hindrance, like I shouldn't be there. It was a very scary place to be because you have a child. It's not just about you. There was so much pressure. And then there's this kind of inner stuff that you feel you shouldn't be feeling that way. And then you almost make yourself wrong, if you like. And when you're feeling like that and you're in that stressed state, which on reflection I now totally understand, your thoughts become survival thoughts. So lots of intrusive thoughts, lots of overwhelm. The input into my brain was just too much. So I tested my gut. I saw I was inflamed. And I have to say that was just so reassuring, because you do think it's in your head. You think there's something wrong with you. You think there's something wrong with your brain. And you put it all down to this kind of mental health kind of label, which mental health, depression and anxiety are the body's response to stress. The mind and the body are connected. The gut and the brain are connected. So understanding that, I mean, now, it's great. But at the time I did this test, and then I slowly started to rebuild myself. So I changed my diet. I focused on what I could change opposed to the things that I couldn't. And once I did that, I started to have some more clarity. I started to feel more replenished. I was a little bit more rested. So all the emotional stuff that was coming up, and in my story, there is transgenerational trauma. There are events that have happened before I was even born that absolutely affect us. We inherit our cells, the genes. We inherit the mitochondria from our mothers. So we're taking on board, if you like, a certain amount of ancestral transgenerational trauma. This is really an interesting thing to look into if that is relevant to anyone. So it's understanding that it's bigger than you. There could be wider stuff going on that's impacting how you respond to stress, how you feel about yourself, and then certain life stages of being a parent. So Bonnie being a certain age could really bring stuff up that happened to me around that age. And I didn't know any of this. So it really was this kind of learning journey, this personal growth journey. And then, of course, it's understanding about our mind. And that really does run the show when you're sleep deprived, when you're a new mum, when you're not nourishing the body. It can become incredibly overpowering. And what I always say now is that the mind should be the side passenger. What should be running the show is the heart. And I had neglected what was in my heart. I think you think that a child comes along and then it's all about them, but it has to be about you. Because if you're not in the center, if you're not feeling well, if you're not feeling nourished and happy and calm and balanced and more like you, then that is going to affect everything around you. So it's almost like looking after you so that you can be the mum, you can be the person you want to be for everyone else. It must start with you. And I didn't realize this at the time. So slowly I started to do some of the stuff that I really enjoy. And the more you do to fill up your heart, the more it kind of grows, and the more it helps your focus. So you start to focus on what's in your heart. So your mind is no longer running away and people pleasing, intrusive thoughts, comparison, looking what everyone else is doing on social media. It's much more focused on you and what's in your heart. And then when you can engage those two, the heart and the head, I really see this as like your compass for action. You've got the heart and head on board. Then we become much more attuned to what's in our body. And this is exactly what happened to me, that then I was much more connected. I wasn't getting frustrated with my body anymore. I wasn't thinking I need to take this or that or numb it or drink. I was much more compassionate and understanding and knew what it was trying to tell me. And then when you're much more nourished and connected, you've got your head and heart engaged, then of course you really start to step back into your true identity, into your spirit, into your essence. And for me, motherhood has been more about the birth of a mother and a new identity, just as it has about raising a beautiful child. So it's almost rebuilding and reconnecting and recreating myself. But to do that, sometimes you have to go beneath the surface. You have to look at what could be causing some of these symptoms. You have to be brave enough to look at all your needs and some of the stuff that we've packed away, like traumas that we kind of store in our neurotransmitters, that sometimes can just be brought back up. So absolutely, I didn't do this on my own. I did work with people. I worked with lots of people, and it turned out to be really fun and this growth adventure, more so than like healing and this, oh my God, I need to go here again and talk about this. It became fun because it was about me. And the more I know about me, the more I like about me. And then I could spend more time with myself. And of course, that's the greatest gift we can give our children, our loved ones, our own health and happiness. So that's a little bit about my story. And it really came back to understanding what was going on in my gut, reducing inflammation through food, taking probiotics, supporting my sleep, but then looking at the wider things, what's in my heart, filling my cup, shifting my emotional state, and then really becoming who I was and being proud of that. And then here is just again taken from some of my work, that what I would just say is health and happiness is not a final destination. Gut health is not a protocol. It's a way of life. It's a cycle of growth. It's something that we're always evolving through. So I like to call it the self-growth cycle, that when we can start to view our health and happiness, and let's not separate ourselves from our health. We are our health. We are important. We're not separate from our goals. We are our goal. So it's putting us in the center, and it's evolving around this cycle with awareness, with acceptance, going on that discovery journey below the surface. Then looking at the self-care that is going to take you to the person you want to be, take you to that feeling. And then we gain more self-love for ourselves. Now, we do need a little bit of that to get this cycle going. But we're always evolving around this. We're always learning. And by doing this and expanding our mind and expanding our health and working on ourselves, it actually allows us to become much more present. So we're not doing all the time. We're not kind of forcing and pushing ourselves. We can start to be and just to allow ourselves to enjoy the moment. So that is everything that I wanted to share. I hope it's been enjoyable. This is where you can find out more about me. So yes, I studied at CNM Birmingham. It was really a huge instrumental part of my health and happiness puzzle. It's taken me to where I am now, and I'm truly grateful, because it has been life-changing for me and the people I work with and my family. I'm Annie Breen Nutrition. I actually have a gut health program for mums. It is for mums. I've tailored it to mums out now, which is Healthy Tongue, Happy Mum. And it's taking you through this process with a little bit of a kind of creative twist to it, if you like. And then I have an Instagram, Facebook group, Facebook page. So those are my details. And then just finish on Hippocrates. It's such an old saying, but all disease begins in the gut. I like to believe that health starts in the gut. So thank you everyone for taking the time to listen. I think we've gone 15 minutes over the hour, but that's actually quite good for me. So there's some resources here if you wanted to delve a little bit deeper into gut health and do a bit more extra reading. And also just to remind you that please do contact CNM if you are interested in any of their courses or becoming a therapist. We need more. The UK needs more. And it really is the future. It really is where things are heading, and it's helping people empower themselves to look after their own health and happiness. And this is really, I see it as the future. I see it as my kind of contribution, if you like, to Bonnie. So to find out more about how you can train or become a naturopathic practitioner, that's their website, www.natropathy-uk.com. And then you've got the phone number there as well, 01342 410 505. And then they also have a Facebook page for general information. And do check that out because they share lots of health tips and recipes at cnm.co.uk. And they have an Instagram page as well. So thank you once again. I hope that has been helpful, and hopefully I'll be back again at some point to do another webinar. Take care, everyone.
What has changed for you today, irrevocably, is that you are now one of us. You are one of our colleagues as a result of this ceremony and your own efforts. Never forget that we are still here for you, and we are applauding your success at every turn.
I've met friends for life, and I really enjoyed the biomedicine first year that I went into because I felt like it has given the foundational knowledge to build on in the nutritional therapy and going into clinics, and everything kind of just came together as one.
So to you, our graduates, you did it. You turned your passion into a career and have now entered one of the most rewarding professions where you can truly make a positive difference to people's lives.
My words to describe my time at CNM would be eye-opening, because it made me realise who I am as a person. It wasn't just about educating myself about nutritional therapy. I discovered who I am and my passions and my beliefs as well.
By bouncing ideas off each other, treating everybody as an individual, you will see wonderful clinical results. And believe you me, I see miracles in my practice every day, and I know you will too.
Being part of a community of other students and seeing how they wanted to lead their practice and what drew them into CNM was really inspiring to me. It feels like a community.
We work to build what we do want. Rather than giving all our attention to the disease, the pathology, we work to find what will create the healthiest person possible.
I'm going to be using the skills and experience that I've learned to help those closest to me. So primarily my two children, and making sure that they grow up with really great habits that they take into adulthood.
Whilst focusing on how you can support the body's self-healing mechanisms, never underestimate the healing power of nature. This continues to amaze me every day with my own patients. And with natural medicines growing all around us, we need only look through our windows to see nature's cures right on our doorstep.
Once I had taken that first step, I have never looked back. I've never regretted it. You are always supported with CNM. No matter who you meet, they're always there to support you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be kind, look after yourselves and others.
Я сама родом с Эстонии. и как бы всю мою жизнь я занималась спортом. Я играла в гандбол в Эстонии. Вот я уже давно живу в Лондоне и работаю в данный момент. Я учитель физкультуры здесь, преподаватель в средней школе. Может быть, лет 5 последние у меня были со здоровьем проблемы, как часто так выходит. Мы ищем, в чем проблема. И так как я обращалась к врачам и не могла найти, то есть врачи как-то мне особо не могли помочь или направить, я стала искать другие какие-то пути, чтобы самой организму помочь справиться. И вот я нашла через одного нутрициолога, посмотрела, где она училась, и оказалась у нас в Лондоне, совсем, кстати, недалеко от меня. Вот наш колледж CNM существует, и здесь есть разные факультеты. Я училась в кампусе в Лондоне и учусь теперь онлайн, но это курс на английском языке. Но теперь, перейдясь на онлайн, это тоже на английском языке. Но я знаю, теперь эта возможность есть на русском языке слушать, поэтому это вообще здорово, если это ваш язык, и это все можно понять, как это более легче тогда и запоминается. И мне очень нравится эта возможность, что ты можешь делать эти все лекции и учиться онлайн. У тебя есть контакт с преподавателями, есть форум для студентов на онлайн, то есть ты не потерян, ты не один, и ты можешь контактировать. Так я вышла в контакт с многими людьми, просто ты пишешь, а вы откуда, и ты откуда, и люди начинают создавать чаты. На самом курсе я поняла, что биомедицина была очень необходима для начала, для основы, потому что понимание, как работает организм и как вот все взаимосвязано, и потому что мы смотрим на человека в целом, очень помогает теперь на втором курсе все это в практику, и ты видишь, как это необходимо. И этот диплом, с ним можно поехать в любую точку мира. И мне очень нравится, что ты с ним можешь работать онлайн. Его признают в Европе, его признают в России. И работая и зная многих нутрициологов, клиенты со всего мира обращаются. И Америка, и Россия, и вот все европейские страны. И поэтому этот диплом мне прямо вот дает такую уверенность, что неважно, где я буду, здесь, в UK или еще в какой-то стране, я всегда могу этот диплом применять в практике, в своей жизни.
Всем привет, меня зовут Диана Хрущинович, я нутрициолог и коуч по интегративному питанию. В данный момент я также являюсь студенткой колледжа CNM, и я обучаюсь на втором курсе, и именно сейчас прохожу модули по биохимии. Я являюсь международным нутрициологом. В данный момент я живу в Европе, в Италии и веду свою практику онлайн. До того момента, как я поступила в CNM, я производила исследования колледжа, общалась со знакомыми, которые уже работали, учились в этой сфере. И поиск всегда приводил меня к CNM, поэтому я достаточно быстро приняла решение и поступила, о чем ни разу не пожалела. И вообще в целом я искала колледж, который позволил бы мне иметь лицензию на то, чтобы быть международным нутрициологом и чтобы спокойно работать в разных странах, где бы я ни оказалась в своей жизни, в какой бы точке мира я ни оказалась, и для того, чтобы уметь вести практику также на английском языке, потому что это немаловажно. Что мне нравится в обучении в CNM? Так это то, что вся система, электронная система обучения очень красиво и эстетично настроена, что все модули грамотно разбиты по темам, и все темы плавно переходят и одна из другой, и все эти переходы сделаны очень логически. Когда мы проходим какие-то сложные темы, изучаем какие-то сложные моменты и сложные системы тела, преподаватели очень здорово приводят сравнения, приводят примеры, и это помогает откладыванию некоторых моментов в долгосрочной памяти для того, чтобы потом применять это на экзаменах и в курсовых. Что еще мне очень нравится в CNM, так это практика. Очень много времени предоставляется техники работы с клиентами, очень много видео того, как эксперты, преподаватели ведут практику с клиентами, а ты просто должен сидеть и записывать, делать разные упражнения, исходя из этой практики. И когда ты смотришь на такую реальную работу, это очень, очень сильно помогает и очень сильно придает мотивации и, наверное, уверенности в себе, потому что тебе уже не так страшно начинать работать с клиентами. И, конечно же, предоставляется реальная работа с клиентами, когда ты не только смотришь, но когда ты являешься нутрициологом, ты ведешь клиента и потом просто предоставляешь свои записи на проверку. И также есть кто-то, кто тебя контролирует. То есть все предрасполагает тебя к тому, чтобы после CNM ты мог выйти и действительно начать свою практику. Конечно же, не нужно думать, что все так просто, потому что все равно темы сложные, обучение очень глубокое, и есть большое количество экзаменов и большое количество курсовых, которые нужно писать, которые очень трудоемкие, которые имеют определенные правила написания. Но здесь, опять же, не нужно переживать, потому что колледж предоставляет огромную поддержку в подготовке, а кураторы очень быстро отвечают и на вопросы какие-то технические, также на вопросы теоретические, практические, и плюс они предоставляют огромное количество мотивации. Еще очень здорово, что есть семинары, не только лекции записанные, а также семинары онлайн, которые проходят в определенные дни недели в определенное время, поэтому я просто отмечаю их у себя в календаре, нажимаю на ссылку, перехожу и смотрю. Эти семинары могут быть по теме ведения консультаций, также могут быть по теме прохождения некоторых лекций для подготовки к экзамену. Это тоже очень сильно, это очень здорово, это очень сильно помогает. Плюс ко всему есть разные возможности соединиться с студентами, которые учатся на твоем курсе, общаться с ними онлайн, общаться в группах на Фейсбуке, общаться в Slack и в разных онлайн-платформах. Кому я рекомендую обучаться в CNM? Ну, во-первых, если вы живете за границей, то CNM определенно для вас, потому что таким образом вам не нужно ездить в Лондон на лекции, на практику с клиентами. Также, если вы где-то в декрете, либо у вас есть маленькие или не очень маленькие дети, когда у вас есть свободное время от детей, вы можете потратить его не просто на смотрение сериалов, а на обучение, на получение реального образования, которое поможет вам работать во всем мире.